Hello, everyone. I am Claudiu Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspire Show. And today, my guest is Isis Indriya. Isis was born in Mesa, Arizona, Indigenous too, and raised on the island of Guam. Isis dedicates her life in service to prayer, education, and community activism. At the age of 17, she moved to the US and began her studies in mythology, breathwork, which led to the focus on Asian mystery studies, sacred sciences, and earth wisdom traditions. As a minister, culture creator, bridge builder, and fireplace keeper for the Oracle clan, an educator of ritual, divination, Egyptian cosmology, and Hermeticism, Isis shares what she has learned along the way all over the world, either online or on ritual community and through the school she birthed, Academy of Oracle Arts. She also leads pilgrimages to Egypt. In her temple hosts community prayers and gatherings. She's on the board of Water Now, Church of the Essence, Living Village Culture, the Oracle Clan, and she's an advocate for the Fountain Earth, Pioneers, Unify, and the Compass at Lightning in the Bottle. Isis, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. An honor to be here.
Let's start with your upbringing because it's quite interesting. And I'm curious to know how much during your childhood have you been exposed to the values of the indigenous culture?
Oh yeah, it's a big one. Well, like you said, I was born in Mesa, Arizona. And at the age of 4, my mom, Deborah Naki, died from a brain tumor. And with her passing, really the desire to commune with the unseen and the other side began, because I just wanted to commune with her, she's my mom. And soon after, my dad and I moved from Arizona to Guam, and we moved right into my grandmother's house and my grandpa's house and my aunt and uncle and cousins, and moved right into villages, because Guam is made up of villages. It's a tiny island in Micronesia that's it's the top of one of the tallest mountains in the world that's underwater, because it's on the Marianas Trench, Mount Lam Lam. And so I immediately got immersed in Chamorro culture, not, knowing the language. And from there, really through my dad and through my grandma, started learning about what village life and cultural traditions, and also a culture that has been colonized many times and is continuing to be colonized, and how culture still withstands and holds cultural values and really can still survive through continued colonization. And my dad's been a huge part of that. Clifford Anthony Guzman and my stepmom, Monica Guzman. I just want to say their names here. And, one of the things that my dad has always been a great guide for me and support in is the importance of cultural exchange, and how cultural exchange is really key to, at least in the Chamorro tradition, the survival of the traditions. And that really was hard. Obviously, it's like a heartbreak when a parent dies at such a young age. You don't really understand it. But from there, I started the doorways of seeing into the unseen grew more. And I started learning about, through my dad, the little people called the duendes, and through my dad, ancestors, and learning about how to continue relations with those that are on the other side that we don't see. And real quick too, before I continue further, I just want to acknowledge where I am. I'm in the ancestral homelands here of the Nisenan. This area, known as Nevada City, is also, the Nisa name is Ustama. So I just want to speak where I'm at and acknowledge the ancestral people here. Yeah. And then my dad ended up telling me later on in life, he never really told me what to do. He would just share with me ideas, and so I could make my own choices. That's something I've always really appreciated about him. And he always said to me, if I could offer you one piece of wisdom, and I share this all the time because I'm still learning from it. If I could offer you one piece of wisdom, always maintain a state of awe and wonder, because the world will keep opening up,
Beautiful.
So I really appreciate that learning. And one of the things he told me later on in life was that my grandpa, Anthony, he used to see the little people, the duendes. And it was the time when the Catholic Church was very strong in Guam, and he didn't really, at least according to my dad's story, my dad was very young. He didn't really know how to interact with these little people because the traditions of how to were disappearing, or there weren't very many guides at the time, at least for him. And they were making it really hard for him because they were trying to commune with him, and he wasn't allowing those doors to, in that conversation and that relationship, to strengthen. And then one of the stories my dad said is that, there's a story where he went away into the jungle for 40 days and 40 nights. Who knows if it's true that it was 40 days and 40 nights, but he went away into the jungle to face them and came back and never was quite the same again. And so I learned when my dad shared that story with me and then I learned later that even on my mom's side, because my mom is Chamorro, half German. So I'm 3/4 Chamorro, 1/4 German. But of course, what's made up of in Chamorro culture and tradition is a lot of different lineages, including, I found out just about a month ago, I have a tiny bit of Egyptian in there, which is just wild, But what I learned is that on both sides of my family, probably all of us in some fashion, there are deep spiritual and relations and ancestral relations and traditions that, are living, that some have disappeared and some are still there. And that part of my role, my dad would say, is to just help bring that back alive again in our lineages. So, he says it in his own ways, obviously not those exact terms, but so I feel like that's been part of what I'm learning how to do throughout my studies, continued studies. There's a little bit about my life.
Yeah, and so I read about the little people being present in Africa, Burkina Faso. Again, they protect people, and their interaction with humans is limited, and you have to be chosen in order to see them even. But the stories are just unbelievable, beautiful. So, and any particular ceremonies which impress upon you while you're young?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Definitely. There was this, when I was very, very young, one of the first things, actually, even before that was really powerful for me was somehow the way my grandma would sweep. And there was these special kinds of brooms that she would use. And I actually have one because it reminds me of my grandma. The way that she would sweep the house felt to me at the time when I was very young, and like she was cleaning energy. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just to sweep the floor, it was to clean energy. And I remember that so vividly for some reason. But aside from that, there was this particular bridge, and I would go to this bridge and I would see almost like between and they would say that, when you go to this bridge, you start to see the spirits. That was part of what I was told. And then when you go just through this bridge, you would see certain spirits. And I remember as a young person going and trying it out and having that experience. And then another one, and a lot of the ceremonial dynamics were related to places, sacred places on the islands, on the island. That was like where you went to commune in certain ways. And one of the ceremonies for me that I reference, the ceremony has been one of the greatest gifts of my life that has influenced me the most, were the fiestas. Mm-hmm. And the fiestas were, the way that my dad taught me about it anyways, was a village would commit to providing and create all the food for other people from other villages and other families to come to. And that all the rites around how they would, treat the pig and put the pig up, and then provide all the food and all the ceremonial traditional foods of the Chamorro culture. And then when we would arrive, the first thing that we had to do as young kids is make sure to honor our elders. And so the first place we would go is to like commune with the elders, and it was like a smelling, like I always remember my elders would like smell me like that, and I would learn how to smell like that. And it was just, and then from there, after we greeted the elders, then it was like, you kind of continue down the line of the age. And that was the first thing we did. And around this food offering, feasting village experience. And that has been one of the most fundamental memories of the island that I miss the most, you know, because it's an example of like a culture and like keeping the cultural traditions and the cultural foods and the cultural, like, and the relations of all the villages and families connected.
Yes.
So those are just a couple ones.
Yeah. And when they were smelling you, just something came to my mind right now. Were they smelling, how aware are you at the time, or how eager to evolve on your spiritual path, or is just a regular custom of smelling?
It depended on who. It's a really interesting question. You know, it's opening up some doors of memory for me. So thank you. It depended on who I was sharing that with. Now that I'm sitting considering it, I remember that there were certain elders when they were smelling me. It was almost like they were. It was an exchange of like they were inhaling where I'm at, like attuning to where I am.
Yes.
And then, but then with like that love and that care and that intimacy and really the sharing of breath.
Yes.
Similarly supporting me in my next phase, like giving me that like simple, intimate love experience to then feel the blessing from them. It's like a combo.
Yes. Very.
So thank you for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. What is the Oracle clan fire, and what are your responsibilities as a carrier?
Yeah, so that's a big one. When in 2001, through a series of events, I used to produce a series of events called Sealy Court. And I feel like because of my desire to commune with the little people, and I was seeing a lot of little people, I was seeing a lot of fae and gnomes and things like that, I started producing events in honor of these different tribes, these little people tribes. And simultaneously, my friend Michael was producing events called Starseed. And my ex-husband and I, Osiris, were doing Sealy Court. And this man named, I call him the Archangel Gabriel, because he kind of came, his name was Gabriel, and he kind of came out of what seemed like nowhere and then left, you know? And he brought this crystal ball that we call the Oracle to us and said, I'd love to support y'all to work together, and here's this crystal ball. And so the three of us came together and we formed the Oracle gatherings, and we, with our friend Jody, distilled into 23 archetypes that were new archetypes. And over a span of 10 years, it took us 10 years to get through all of the archetypes and thousands of people, ritual theater, you know, like education, dance music,
wow,
community gathering centered around this crystal ball that we called the Oracle. And we learned how to work with her, where we would learn how to offer visions, receive visions, commune with this crystal ball to inform us on what to do. And from there, certain teachers like William Kiesel and things like that came into my life in that 10-year period. I was very young. And so we completed the 10-year journey, and the crystal, obviously, you know, going through an archetypal journey with thousands of people is profound learning, at least was for me. Can I speak for me? Yes. And living a mythological life, you know. And then I think it was like, and at that time, a very powerful vision came to me with my friends Dana and John, and I didn't know what it was. It was like a mapping system. At the time, I thought it was for a community. So later on in life, you know, a decade or more later, I remember I had moved, you know, and the crystal ball was in Seattle, and with Michael and Osiris. And I had went on a psychedelic journey, and I was in the dance floor and had this really powerful experience with a certain medicine. And I came home, and I remember reading this letter. For some reason, I opened up the computer to read a letter. And it was a letter that Chief Arvo Lookinghorse wrote to Obama, basically calling out Obama in relationship to not caring for, you know, the caretakers of these lands, you know, in his own way. It was so beautiful. I started weeping, you know. weeping and weeping, weeping. And then the oracle showed up for me, and I hadn't communed with her in years because I didn't have the crystal ball. She showed up for me, and we started talking, like not talking, but communing. And I started asking her a lot of questions, and profound to say the least. And then it kind of set me off on the next phase of my path with the compass and lightning in a bottle and things like that. So I called Michael and Osiris, is like, hey guys, like, can I hang out with a crystal ball? Like, she comes to me, I'm like talking to her, da da da. So Michael comes over, he brings a crystal ball, and I start working with her again. It had been years. And from that, one of my elders, Marza, well, I had this dream, and it was a dream where this grandmother came to me. And this is when the crystal ball was in front of me at the altar. And this grandmother came to me, and I said, I asked her, how do I take care of the oracle? Because it was like a new time, in the dream. And she's like, with a fireplace. And I was like, how do I take care of a fireplace? And then she handed me the torch from the Statue of Liberty. And she says, with this. And I woke up, I went to my Tibetan dream yogi friend, asked her about it. She said that she understands that sometimes lineages are passed in dreams. So I go to my elder Marza, like, Marza, I had this dream, then my Tibetan yogi friend said this, and da da da. And then she starts jumping up and down. And she's like, I was passed a fireplace, and I was feeling to pass it to you. It's one of 7 fireplaces with an oracle fireplace. And then she passed the fireplace to me, ritually, obviously. And then from there, because it's an oracle fireplace, I started learning how to oracularly attune to how to take care of what are the rites of this fireplace. So soon after, I was telling my friend Johnny Ray about the vision that came to me in 2004. Remember I was talking about that, this vision that I thought was a community mapping system. I didn't really know what it was. And then he'd surprised me with, I was like, maybe it's a board or something. And then he'd surprised me with this beautiful board as a gift, circular board. And I was like, well, this is what the vision showed me. And then he helped, we made it. He helped design it with our friend Tasia, and we made it. And then somebody handed me some dice as a gift, and then people were giving me crystals. And I was like, I don't know what to do with it. So I just threw the dice, and then realized I could read it.
Interesting.
And then realized it was a divination board. And realized that it was, 5 different cosmological mapping systems working together on the board. So then I started asking the board how to care for the fireplace. And then, because I realized it was a vision from the oracle crystal ball. So I work with the crystal ball and the board. And from there now we have a total of almost 42 rites that are divined directly from the board that are in relationship to this fireplace and the clan. And it's become a living lineage and a living legacy that is growing. So it's just so wild, like how things unfold.
And this is knowledge that you can share with other people as well, or is something which will just help you move on your own spiritual path?
No, I'm sharing with people. We have an Oracle Arts Apprenticeship group. We have our second one starting, and it's to be shared in community and 100%. And, it's a new form of divination. I don't know of another Oracle divination board. Doesn't mean there isn't. I just don't know of another one. And I've researched it quite a bit to see if there are others. So it's a new, at least this one is a new technology. I like to reference it as a technology that includes tarot, includes a lot of different mapping systems. And so I'm currently sharing it and teaching what it's taught me to keep it growing. And then I'm always learning. It's a living system, so I'm always really learning from it.
Yes, very, very interesting. Let's turn to one of your favorite subjects, Egypt and the goddess Isis. How to become attracted to Egyptian mythology?
Well, it started when I was 17. I mean, of course, like, you hear about the pyramids when you're young in school and stuff like that. But when I was 17 and I moved to Seattle, I started studying Reiki. And my Reiki teacher at the time, she was teaching me about guides, and she asked to initiate me as Isis because she was one of my guides. And I didn't really know much about who Isis was. And I was like, okay, that, sure, I'm 17 and, don't really know what that meant at the time. And then I went home to tell my roommate Anhata, and she's like, oh, can I call you Isis as a nickname? I was like, sure, and then like I got a new job at her job, and then everyone there started calling me Isis, and soon enough that became my nickname, but I didn't really know much about Isis. And then I started studying like stargates and ascended master work and transpersonal psychology, and my teacher was following her teacher to Egypt. I think I was about 19. And so I followed, and I was like, my partner Osiris and I at the time, he changed his nickname to Osiris. We were just like our cute little nicknames. We didn't really know anything, we were babies, still babies. And then we ended up like selling everything and going on this journey with her to Egypt, a 3-week initiation journey, not really knowing what we're getting into. And that's what started me on the path to being a student to Egypt. Now, to be clear, I'm not claiming to be Isis in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I've always kind of, made sure her story was over here. So I, like, out of respect and not, but I started learning later that the name I was born with, Melissa, is connected to this lineage of beekeepers called the Melisai that are in the lineage of the culture of Isis. And that the name actually is linked to that lineage. So I thought that was really quite unique. And so, we come here for a reason, and we just follow the threads.
Yes.
And Egypt is by far one of my greatest teachers. This last trip, we just did a trip. I lead groups there. We just did a trip this last month, actually. I just got back a week and a half ago. And that was my 9th trip. So I'm kind of a new kid on the block in that realm. And I have really amazing teachers. So thank God, Mahmoud Kader, and I love to acknowledge Normandy Ellis, and a lot of teachers in these ways. So I'm super grateful. And every time I go there, every book I read, every person I talk to, just this infinite well of learning. And there's something about, I'm sure many people here today feel, is like when we go back into the ancient studies as far back as we can go, what we learn there seems to be very helpful and very useful for this time.
Yes.
To create and support and be part of the new systems that want to help with this emergent time in the history of our species. And so I find the further back I go, the more it helps me in learning how to be of service at this time and for many generations into the future.
Yeah, because right now we are going through another cycle, which they went through maybe 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 years ago, in a different level of, technological level and spiritual level, but still, nevertheless, we are going through that cycle. So we have to adapt it to our own conditions, I assume.
Yes, 100%. And the other thing too, I feel about Egypt that I just love every time I go there is that the awe and the wonder, back to what my dad said to me at a very young age, is so alive, because the magnificence of the detail of the esoteric architecture, obviously the pyramid, the Sphinx, the mapping system of all of the temples in relation to the Nile, and the farming technologies, the relationship with the divinities in relationship to farming, the relationship of the Neteru and the divinities, and the theurgy and the ritual, all of those together is really a comprehensive and like elegant in terms, at least as far as I can tell, in relationship to the cosmic resonance, what's going on cosmologically, and how we as humans or divine beings, can bring heaven on earth and learn from the cosmos how to build that here. And Egypt is one of the examples of a lot of the ancient civilizations. It's one of them of how we can do that.
Yes.
They really believed that, at least from what I understand, is that the role is to build heaven on earth and to help with the relations of the divine realm, the human realm, and the natural realm, and how to co-shape together on behalf of making something beautiful to support divine sparks, divine beings coming in and divine beings exiting, and for many generations into the future.
Yes, and
So
we have. Sorry, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
And we have the drawings and the pictographs which show that we have to work on ourselves. We have to open up the pineal gland, which is the main channel, the main beeping antenna in our head, which can connect us with the divine. So they were way ahead of us as we are right now, for sure.
So true. Actually, there's this amazing, maybe you already know about it, if anyone in the group that's here doesn't, there's an amazing documentary series, John Anthony West and Schwaller de Leavitt's work, called Magical Egypt. And one of the things that I love about that is one of the episodes talks a lot about how a lot of the art in the sculptures and the design of these temples, particularly they focus on sculptures, was designed to open up doors of perception and gates in the brain, and that some of the actual sculptures themselves replicated the brain stem and glands in the brain, so that when you gaze upon them or in communion, it literally opens up consciousness. And that's how the function of them. And it's a really amazing example of potentially how things were done. So I just want to recommend that for those that are interested.
Have you visited any specific sites? Have you done any ceremonies there? Perform any ceremonies?
I have, not really supposed to. It's not something I like to promote out of respect for Muslim culture, but yes, I visit there often. And my particular role when I go there, as far as I see it, is to make offerings, not to necessarily go there to get something or try to extract our mind from there, but more to bring offerings to say thank you, and then not to, because saying thank you means I'm going to get something. Exactly. But just to say thank you,
showing gratitude. Yes.
Yeah, and then learn that way. And whatever Egypt wants to show me or share with me, I'm open for. But if Egypt doesn't want to show me anything, that's fine too. But so far, seems to be schooling me on profound levels. One thing is, I went to last year to make prayers for a being that I saw in a ceremony, and make offerings to all of the birthing temples, for all of the beings that have come from those ceremonies too, and then to make a prayer if it was in the highest and best good for me to help carry. And this year I went back to say thank you because I'm carrying, and went back to all the temples just to say thank you for that, Yeah, beautiful. So something that's important for me with the groups that I bring there is that we're going there to make offerings, to feed and nourish and give. I feel like that's really important.
Yes, thank you for doing that. Why did you create Living Village Culture?
That was my partner Eve Bradford. We created Living Village Culture together. So I just want to say her name here. She's an amazing sister. I love her so much. We created Living Village Culture because it felt like a village life is an important way of life that many of us, especially those of us that are spiritual orphans that didn't really grow up in these ways, crave and wish for. A sense of belonging, a sense of community, to be a part of something that includes initiations, that includes rites of passages, that includes, a deep sense of care and a communion with the natural world and the divine realm. And village life experience, it's multi-generational. And, through all of our years of working together, we've been working together for, 15, 20 years now. We feel like, not that we know anything, but we feel like so many of the challenges of our world are connected to the lack of living village life.
Yes.
And what it means to be in a village. And so we connected before that, but our creative outlets began in the festival world in the like early 2000s. And we kind of were feeling like festival culture was almost like a modern day experience, even though festivals are old. Like, people have been doing festivals, cultures have been doing festivals forever. Egypt is an example. But we felt like it was like a modern day experiment to explore what it's like to have village life in some fashion for a temporary time period, you know? And we both had thought often how fascinating it is how quickly festival culture has grown. You know, we're obviously in a different time now. Who knows what's going to unfold? But from there, we just felt the calling to create living village culture, to try to bring to the best of our ability some sense of village life inside the festival dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And we also did do that here in our community where we live. Well, she lives somewhere else now, but I do that here. I continue what we visioned here.
Yeah, and I think it's important because nowadays most of those which realize what's going on in the world advise to start building communities and work together and share your knowledge, share the what you produce, what the land produces, but you help the land produce, and then you share with the others. So it's I think it's a trend which will continue and become much stronger in the upcoming years for sure.
Definitely, 100%. I mean, one of the things my friends that are really master gardeners that provide a lot of starts for our community. We live in a strong organic farming community here. And one of my friends was telling me, she was like, oh man, like, it's wild. From the moment COVID hit, we cannot make enough starts.
Wow.
Everybody's gardening. And I just thought that was so amazing, you know, and she just, usually the farmers are forgotten. And she was like, doesn't feel that way right now. We can't even keep up with the amount of garden support that is needed out there. And so it's really, that's, I think, one of the great blessings of this time, you know, people getting back into the soil.
Yes, and we cannot do any gardening without water. So this is
Yes.
another subject dear to you and me at the same time. You are in the board of part of the board of water now. What's your relationship with water?
Oh, wow. Water is my greatest teacher. I am blown away by the wisdom of water. You know, I mean, my relationship with water is everything. Water is life, you know, just like they say, and up there, you know, is like Maniwachoni. Water is life. You know, one thing I'm experiencing right now in relationship to water is carrying a baby and realizing that this baby is inside of an amniotic, inside of a sac that is made up of water and fluid, and basically breathing in water in my belly. You know, so my relationship with water is really to like keep learning how to serve water, basically, and do whatever I can to be more aware of the relationship that I do have with water and be more in reverence with water every day, all the time, even when I'm washing dishes.
Yes.
Now, in terms of Water Now, started by Karuna Warren, is a really amazing project that he, a project that we've just been working on with the Huni Queen, is we raised funds to help bring clean water and support that village of Huni Queen in the Amazon, getting access to clean water. And one project that Karuna led that started that we've talked about, we haven't had a chance because of COVID to go further with it at this time, but is to work with Habitat for Humanity to do the same thing in Egypt with some of the outer villages and do whatever we can to support that too.
Yeah.
So those are just a couple of the projects.
I mean, these are good projects which can qualify for, donations from the anthology I am putting together right now, and you graciously offered to contribute. I have honestly 2 or 3 projects in mind. All the proceeds from the anthology should go to these projects, and the more people will buy the anthology, the more funds can be put into these places and offer clean water or education. wherever the case might be. So we'll keep working on that for sure.
Amazing, 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 amazing.
What is the most fascinating aspect of your life?
I mean, my immediate response is the Oracle. I am just absolutely fascinated about the story with this crystal ball. And, I shared more about the story than I do very often, and there's so many threads. And I one of the things that's fascinating to me about my relationship with the Oracle is that, obviously humbled left and right, and like learning what it's like to be in service in that way to a relationship in the unseen realms through this crystal technology. And I used to keep this a secret because it just sounds like it could easily sound like a crazy person. But who's to say what's sane in an insane world, And like, I just at one point the Oracle was like, you had to be direct about it. Just speak it, and if people think you're wacko, fine, no problem.
Exactly.
Who cares, But for me, what's so fascinating is the more I stay in service in relation with this being in the unseen realm, there's a council, actually, there's a whole council. The more I stay in service and stay behind it, not try to get in front of it, and work with this divination board and listen and pay attention and allow myself to receive instructions from them, not from me. It's not about me, The more I do that, things come into alignment. When I try to get in front of it, try to make it about me, or try to do whatever, it's just there are blocks, and I can't. It's just like almost like I'm stuck. And so I've been learning just how to humble myself like that in service and learn that way. I'm fascinated by it because whomever or whatever the Oracle aligns me with, I just love so much. It just feels so right, So I just kind of stick with that.
Yeah, I mean, I love learning every single day, no matter what the angle is, from what direction, either from a book or from a movie or a snippet of information. I really love to stay, to learn every day. It's beautiful. Isis, other than Guam and Egypt, what other mystical places have you visited and how did they influence you? Your spiritual journey, I mean.
Oh, goodness. So many places. My dad also, at a very young age, he got me traveling at a young age. He said, you'll learn more seeing the world than probably anything, he'd say that. But at a very young age, when I was 10, I think I was 10, 9 or 10, he had me live with a family in Japan and for 3 months. And that was a big part of my spiritual journey. Then he had me live with a Filipino family after that. And since then, I've traveled to about 50 countries. And I would say that they're all pilgrimages, because in some fashion, wherever I go, I'm a guest on the holy lands of where I'm going, and I find that like the times that I maintain that as a remembrance that I'm a guest and I'm here to learn, so many doors of perception open because I'm available to learn from the locals and learn from the land and learn from where I'm at. And, from that continual commitment to travel, like now, obviously I'm, going to be more still, except for to Egypt with the baby for now. I found myself in like Peru has been a huge teacher for me. 100%. Spent a month there with my dear friend Jessie, and we, went to obviously Machu Picchu and Pumapunku and Tiwanaku and, Titicaca, and then to like, Coca Canyon. I mean, it just goes on and on. We went on a full month-long journey there. That was a profound teaching for me. Still is. Of course, Mexico, Teotihuacan, the entire Yucatan, for sure. Calakmul, never forget Calakmul. that was a big one for me. Cambodia, India, India was a big one for me. Cambodia was a big one. Oman was a huge one for me. Getting to connect with the ancient Arabic jinn traditions. That was profound. I could go on and on and on, but those are the few that like are off the bat, like ting. And then also, you know, Kenya was huge, a huge teaching for me, still is, of like communing with the animals there and what it's like, particularly rhinos. There's something about when I got to sit with rhinos, or like, you know, obviously in the Jeep, you know, as an eco safari, which is important what kind of safaris we do, just want to say that. But I remember sitting in the Jeep and these majestic rhinos. I didn't even know I could fall in love with rhino. I didn't even think about that, you know. And I remember that it was a family of rhinos, and they just stood there, and we were pretty close to what felt close to me. I just watched and gazed upon them in awe and realized, like, wow, they're almost like in the lineage of dinosaurs, you know? How long have where did rhinos come from? And like the majesty of these animals, these species, you know? Yeah. Kenya was a huge one for me, you know? So those are a few. I could go on and on and on, because I do feel like every place I've traveled has been and is a pilgrimage in some fashion for my own spiritual learning and growth.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. At the beginning, you mentioned a little bit about plant medicine. Which one have more influence on you, or they're all equal but with different effects, like, you know, ayahuasca, San Pedro, iboga, or which one?
Wow, it's a big question. I'm particularly working with one plant medicine. It's a cactus at this moment. One of my elders had said to me, it's really good to stay focused with one, to learn from one at a time. There was a period where I was learning from a lot at the same time. And that was important for my life at that time. And then one of my elders is like, it's really good to just like commit to one and learn with one and stay present with one for a time, or maybe your whole life, or it might be a time period, but just so you can really actually learn. And so, but it's hard to say which one is the one, because the different powerful points in my life, different medicines have been huge for my breakdowns and breakthroughs, you know. And obviously the grandmother medicine has been huge for me. Grandfather medicine, of course. Yeah. Happy uncle, of course. You know, the little mushroom beings too. You know, the plant world has been major healing and major healers and teachers for me. And, you know, in the position I sit right now about it, you know, probably grow and change tomorrow or next week or next month or next year, who knows, is some of my elders in relations are like, you know, there's almost like sometimes plants can't grow as quick as the humans that are trying to consume them, you know, or needing to, or think they need to consume them, their rate of consumption. And some plants and some medicines can. And one of my elders like, be really mindful about your relationship with these medicines and why you're going to them to learn, and do you really need to at this time, and is this actually assisting in their life and where they live and how they grow and how they continue their work, and to just be careful about that and mindful. And so I think about that, and I also think about too one of my elders, and then I read that book Botany of Desire from Michael Pollan. This idea that these medicines, they also have work that they're doing, you know, and some of them are coming to us to help us, so we can learn how to basically dissolve programs. And, you know, I like the breakdown, breakthrough kind of thing, you know, because the only way out is through, so that we can actually sit up in ourselves and be of service to the ecosystem. Yes. You know, so I wouldn't really pick one, but I would say right now that I'm particularly learning a lot from a particular cactus. I'll just leave it at that. And just want to also speak my reverence to all of those that have been caring for these ceremonial ways in all the different places all over the world, and my reverence to these plant medicines, and and all of the traditions and cultures that have been keeping these ceremonies alive. And just want to say thank you, because I have learned so much. I'm still learning so much, and may we learn how to tend to things in a good way, and in right relationship with the human and non-human, the plant realms and divine realms too, like that.
Yes, yeah, we have to learn how to respect everything that's happening in nature. And indeed, these communities in South America right now, I heard that they are hurting due to no income, no revenue from tourism, and
Yeah.
that's not pleasant. They are going through some hardships these days. So if we can help them in any way, that would be great. Are you offering any other programs or teachings until June?
Yeah, I am. Thank you for asking. Um, through the Academy of Oracle Arts, we just released a course. It's an evergreen called the Divination, Art of Divination. I also have an Art of Ritual course there. And then I'm starting a Hermetic Kabbalah, Intro to Hermetic Kabbalah course next month through the Academy. And then through Shift Network, we're doing a Doorway into Oracle Arts course. And it's a 7-week course that starts in April also. Very excited about that too. And and so those are the two before June, and the two that have already been released. And then, of course, through Ritual Community, which is our online membership community, we do all kinds of classes there. And it's a great taster for to see. It's like an online library of different ways to explore and experiment with things and see what you like. And also be a part of new moon rituals, full moon rituals, and divination. And then I'm doing a class with Consciously Connected next month also. So I'm very excited about that. And then we're preparing for our next Oracle Arts apprenticeship. This one this year closes up in May, and we're accepting applications now for the one that starts in October.
Beautiful, beautiful work. Thank you very much. And I want to be considerate of your time and the fact that you might not be able to sit for too long in that position. And do you have any final thoughts as you are approaching the end of the interview?
Well, I just want to say thank you for inviting me, and I just really appreciate your heart and your spirit and where you're coming from, and just want to say to every person that listens to this, my prayer, my hope is that everything that was shared here is somehow helpful and useful and beneficial and supportive for path moving forward, and everything that you're doing. You already have all the blessings, but maybe more blessings just keep raining upon you, and how you're bringing all of this out into the world. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. And for my viewers, thank you for watching. Like it, share it. You can support me on patreon.com/Claudiu Murgan. Get a free copy of my first book, The Decadence of Our Souls, if you visit my website. Until next time, love and gratitude.